You had the ChatGPT moment back in November 2022. Now we're finding these really interesting edge use cases that are going to turn mainstream when that comes to truly predicting buyer behavior and where that will help influence, but also dictate where you are going to position yourself, not only as a marketeer and your marketing strategy, but your organization as a whole.
As the founder of The Signal, a top AI newsletter with 40,000 readers, and the creator of GrowHub, Alex is leading the charge in AI-driven branding. He's here to break down how AI will not only influence, but dictate your marketing strategy, business decisions, and competitive edge. If you're a brand or agency leader, this isn't just an episode, it's a game plan for the future. Welcome to the DesignRush Podcast. I'm Kia Johnson. Let's cut through the AI hype and uncover what really matters. Got a story worth sharing? Email us at spotlight@designrush.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more insights that will help you scale your brand and business. Alex, it's so great to have you on the DesignRush podcast. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You know, we've got a lot to dive into, but first I want us to kick things off with some rapid fire questions just to get to know you better. Are you ready for me?
I absolutely am. Let's get stuck in.
All right, so your first question is, top 3 AI tools you'd use for a campaign today?
I would have to say Beehive for newsletters. I think they cater to the enterprise and also the consumer very well. I think Claude for copy generation, given how playful and fun its tone is. And then I'd have to be a little bit selfish and give a big shout out to GrowHub to help executives push their personal brand on LinkedIn.
One word to describe DeepSeek.
Revolutionary.
One book on AI every business leader should read.
It would have to be a great book that I recently came across called Welcome to AI by Matthew Dougal and Owen Davey. I think it's actually a children's book. It's incredibly colorful, but it is such an incredibly comprehensive breakdown when it comes to the history of AI and actually how it will ultimately change our lives today.
One historical tech innovator you'd have dinner with.
This figure is a little controversial, but it would have to be Elon Musk, given how unparalleled he is at marshalling resources, capital, talent. I think it is unprecedented in this world today. So I think he would have definitely some gems to share on that.
Most surprising message or comment you've received online.
This one's a little hard to pinpoint, but there is always a fantastic reader, a guy called Chris, shout out to him, who reads The Signal every single week and always provides some brilliant feedback. It is brilliant. He's about 80 years old, based in Wales over here in the United Kingdom, and he provides such brilliant insights.
Who will shape the future of marketing? Big tech or independent AI?
I think we're going to see this being pulled from opposite directions, Kia. We've got big tech on the one plane, big tech on the one side, building these foundation models, building really brilliant, foundational LLMs that these marketers get to use. But then on the other hand, you've got these independent studios, individuals who are finding very, very exciting niche, useful insights and use cases that are actually applying these models, leveraging specific knowledge that these big companies just don't have, given that they're so broad and blanketed.
That was a solid warm-up. Thanks for that. We're going to dive into the big questions and just get your take on quite a couple of things. So let's dive into this. The first question I have is, Alex, you've built The Signal into one of the most influential AI newsletters in the world. I mean, you're reaching over 40,000 industry professionals and over 1 million people weekly on social media. I mean, that is amazing. Now, AI itself is actually evolving at a frenzied pace, and decision makers, I mean, your CEOs, your CMOs, and your agency leaders, they're actually being bombarded with AI trends, AI tools, and like game-changing technologies every day. So if you were in their shoes, trying to separate real AI opportunities from the hype, where would you start?
You know, okay, this is such a good question. I think the foundational truth here is that you have to be a truth seeker in this world of AI and generative AI. There is so much noise and so much buzz around this ecosystem. You have to be incredibly discerning about where you get your information from, given that there is so much hype and a lot of jargon and noise thrown around in the online spheres. So, if I was really trying to cut through that, it's very important to seek out the truth through whichever platforms you hang out, right? That could be X, that could be LinkedIn, those could be digestible newsletters, and finding the ones which you resonate with, right? One size isn't going to fit all, and it's up to you as an individual to find that source of truth. I guess this is one big reason why I write the Signal, is because in the world of weekly, daily newsletters, we provide just one issue a week, right? We're not here to bombard you with an overload of tools, tips, and tactics. We just want to give you the highest signal ones at the end of each week so that you can easily digest them and, as a busy professional, apply these tactics to your life in a really useful way. And I think these are these sort of overarching themes here. There are so many resources out there for you to go and try, so many courses, so many products for you to sink your teeth into. And I think the real key is just getting stuck in, right? Just trying, using these tools, seeing what you like, seeing what you don't like, whether that be the tone of Claude against the sort of colder tone of, say, ChatGPT, and just really being a discerning user. I think that's really the key takeaway that us as individuals, as professionals, must have moving forward, because at the end of the day, there will never be a technology that will diffuse as fast as AI in our lifetimes, and it's up to us to ultimately stay on that cutting edge there.
What would you say is actually the single biggest misconception then that business leaders have about AI, specifically in marketing today?
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception would be that AI is a done for you solution. It's a click one button and your marketing strategy is set. I think it's such a big misconception where individuals often see it as an easy way out to hand over their creativity to AI, where in fact, Kia, the best solutions come from human creativity injected through AI, to which you can achieve an output that is far greater than if it was just you or the AI alone. And I think that insight has to be imperative to help you define your strategy, to help you define where it is you want to position yourself as an enterprise, because at the end of the day, if you aren't paying attention to it, you will get left behind. But if you are doing too much, if you're handing too much over, that person will easily be found out, if that makes sense. For example, I spend a tremendous amount of time on LinkedIn, and the influx of AI generated content from even executives, right? It is flooding my timeline and the comment section. So by being, as I mentioned previously, a discerning user of these tools, infusing your own stories, your notes, your insights, when you're playing around, when you're building campaigns, when you're building strategies, even writing a LinkedIn post, for goodness sake, and actually getting something that is useful, unique, and perhaps blends insights across boundaries. And I think if you can do that, that will set the stage very, very nicely for yourself and your company.
I mean, and you were touching on speaking about, AI on a strategic level. So then you would say that,
Yeah.
Executives should actually be integrating it rather, instead of doing it reactively, they have to do it strategically.
Yeah.
What would you say is then the most damaging mistake that you see happening in AI adoption right now, besides some of those that you mentioned? Is there anything that you can expand on?
Yeah, I think there are maybe a few things that I think would be worthwhile to explore here, Kia. The first is really understanding the types of data that you're sharing with these models. So if I'm a consumer and I go and use the consumer version of, say, ChatGPT, the data that I share with these models will be used to train the underlying models. And this is a really important consideration given the sensitivity of information that I'm wanting to share and wanting to get insights on. Because at the end of the day, if it's sensitive, OpenAI has all the power to use that to train its next generation of models. So that's a really important consideration. So as an enterprise, it's important that you are using the enterprise versions of these tools where the underlying LM providers don't train on that information, and that your AI pipelines are set up correctly. So that would be a first thing to avoid and to make sure that you're on the right side of. The other thing would have to be hallucination, where it would be trusting the answer of these models, trusting everything that these models say, right? I think that would be perhaps the most dangerous thing to do. And I guess we've got quite accustomed to it over the last, 20 odd years. We've had, the mobile, we've had the browser, and now we've got generative AI in 2022. We are so used to trusting what we see on Google. And at the end of the day, we are actually transitioning now from search engines through to answer engines, where people just want the answer on tap. They want the answer immediately. But at the same time, to my sort of thread throughout this conversation is, be discerning of the answer that you're getting. How can I verify the source? How can I view the citation for the answer that I'm getting here? Because if you can do that, and I think there are some great tools out there already. You've seen ChatGPT include search, you've seen Perplexity, you've seen these other enterprise tools embed, for example, in data analysis, show examples of where the answers were received from or were retrieved from. So, for example, if it were a data analytics tool, you could have citations of answers, of figures, so that you'd click through, see the tables, see the underlying statistics that back up the answers that you receive. And so I guess my point being able to see that common thread, that common vein from the answer through the reasoning all the way back to the initial question that you asked. So those would be two that I think are really important to pay attention to, because we know that, look, hallucination isn't going to go away anytime soon. It's a fundamental part of the transformer architecture that underpins these LLMs. And until we see a real step change in the fundamental technology, that isn't going to go away.
So, Alex, you mentioned earlier in our rapid fire questions when I asked you about DeepSeek, you said revolutionary, right? So it's recently made waves, with its advanced reasoning capabilities. So do you actually see this as a real breakthrough then for business applications, or is it just another overhyped AI moment?
Yeah, I have many takes on this, Kia. So if you think about what DeepSeek is, right? So DeepSeek came to market quite unexpectedly. They released a model back in December, which was their DeepSeek v3, and then 3 weeks later they released R1, which was their reasoning model. Now there really wasn't much, there wasn't much noise at all about their v3 model. It was only until R1 came to market, which essentially blew OpenAI's O1 model out of the water. So O1 was their reasoning model from OpenAI. They'd spent a tremendous amount of compute, and they'd spent so much time on the training process, taking the all the answers from, say, GPT-4o and pulling that into O1, and now O1's going to get pulled into O3, and we'll just see this cycle continue. But for DeepSeek specifically, if we think about the context here, right, we have a Chinese quantitative hedge fund that had some spare GPUs that they were training on and mining on, and they thought, hey, let's use some of the outputs of GPT-4o here, throw it in, and actually see what we get. Obviously, I am oversimplifying the the narrative, but my point being is that if you can train your model on the outputs of other models and hit benchmarks that are equal to or ascendant of those of the largest incumbents in the AI space today, the market listens. And we saw that on Monday, where almost $600 billion from NVIDIA's market cap were wiped off within 24 hours. That was the single greatest move in stock market history, right? That is completely unprecedented. Obviously, it's now rebounded somewhat, but to just think about, I guess, on one hand, the herd mentality, but on the other, a open source, cheaper, faster, more intelligent model coming to market that is, I think V3 is 10 times cheaper than GPT-4o, and R1 is 27 times cheaper. So these sort of input-output for inference, for token processing is just totally unprecedented. We haven't seen this in the market today because the largest players have been controlling the narrative. They've been controlling the quality of the outputs and controlling the cost for the end user, for the end enterprise. And so what's coming to light right now is a really interesting picture where open source is actually getting its act together. We saw some glimmers with Llama 3.1 from Meta, but I think maybe to sort of conclude this point would be that the most dangerous outcome for AI, for generative AI, is when a small group of people control access to the most intelligent models in the world. We are very, very close to, we are ascending to this road to AGI. We'll probably be there within the next 3 to 5 years. We've gone from reasoning models through to agents, and who knows what's next. And the most dangerous outcome is when a small group of people control these models and actually implement. It could be a $200 a month cost for it, as we saw with ChatGPT with their Pro model, right? $200 a month is a really, really extortionate levy on top of the true inference cost that is incurred when you're generating these answers. So those are some thoughts maybe to mull over. I think open source, I'm massively bullish on open source. I think, DeepSeek, they are from China. Obviously, there's the underlying notion that, look, the CCP over in China can demand from any Chinese company at any point data from that company. So if you are sharing
yeah.
So if you are sharing data, any data, it doesn't even have to be sensitive, that can be retrieved at any point by the Chinese government. And so that's a really important consideration to make. So I think we're sort of similarly to one of my previous points there, Kia, we are pulling in opposite directions here. We've got open source screaming forward, but at the same time, we have to be sensitive and thoughtful about the data that we're sharing with these models, given who's actually controlling these models, who's training these models, and how we can enable that to reach a far more effective and reasonable outcome in the end.
What I also want to find out from you is, can you share an AI-driven marketing case study that fundamentally shifted your perspective on what's possible? Do you have any case studies you can think of?
You know what? I have been really intrigued by what some of the larger players have been doing so far, Kia. And I actually was lucky enough to have done some work with Mailchimp back in 2024. And I think maybe I can just draw on that example. Maybe we can double click on that. So what Mailchimp are doing is really interesting. So they have access to hundreds of thousands of email campaigns, hundreds of thousands of historical email campaigns. As we were mentioning, data-rich details from information that has been crafted by humans for many, 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 many prior years. And what Mailchimp are doing is they are embedding AI in their platform in a really thoughtful way. And I'm not being endorsed to say this, but I'm just noting about how thoughtful they're going about it, in that you as a marketer can now pull on the trends and insights from what you have previously written to help inform new campaigns of the future. And I think we'll see this across other vendors too. But with this example specifically, it means that the historical data that you can now retrieve, double click on, and pull into these new campaigns, I think is phenomenal, right? Whilst there isn't maybe one example clearly, I know that the data that actually underpins it and the outcomes that they're seeing, users of these tools to generate new leads, to overcome customer objections, through to just wanting to get to know your customers better, I think is really, really neat. And I think this is this whole idea of combining a very, very unique human insight with very, very powerful AI models, and finding that marriage, finding that intersection. That's really where the magic happens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, Alex, brands have also been obsessed with personalization at scale for years. But I mean, AI has taken it to another level. So we're no longer just talking about segmentation. I mean, we're seeing AI predict the customer behavior. And you were just kind of touching on that right now before they even act, right? So some actually call this the holy grail of marketing. I mean, while others actually call it a privacy nightmare. So from your perspective, do brands truly understand the magnitude of what's at stake here? And what does this mean for the future of brand loyalty?
Yeah, it's such a great question. We are only scratching the surface of what is possible here and the insights that we can generate and ultimately deliver in terms of new information that we're going to offer our customers, but also that we're going to receive, right? The amount of information that we will now understand about you as an individual, your buying preferences, your behavior, your predictability is going to be wholly unprecedented, Kia. And how that affects you as a marketer, I guess, is in a couple of ways, right? It's the sort of devil in the detail, whereby you are now loaded with so much unique insights and information about who your customers are, where they live, what they're doing, who they do for work, and what that means is it on the one hand empowers you to deliver very, very personalized insights. On the other hand, it's incredibly sensitive information that you have to be thoughtful about how you use and how you proceed to target. So I think we're only scratching the surface of this, because marketers, asking ChatGPT to write your next email campaign is very different from pulling on the last 1,000 email campaigns that were sent to John, and how John's going to feel when you send this new email that was a collection of all the responses and all the sort of open times and feedback and everything that you've received from him as a customer in this new email, right? These are two completely different paradigms that we're going to see moving forward. We had the ChatGPT moment back in November 2022. Now we're finding these really interesting edge use cases that are going to turn mainstream when that comes to truly predicting buyer behavior and where that will help influence, but also dictate where you are going to position yourself, not only as a marketeer and your marketing strategy, but your organization as a whole.
So, I mean, that kind of like brings me to the next question then. I mean, because this AI-driven personalization itself,
Yeah.
at what point does it become overreach? And then where's the ethical boundary? You're touching on that right now. So it's a very, I think, thin line that you're walking. So what do you have to say to that? Yeah.
Yeah. Ethics here it has to be paramount. It has to be front of mind. As we are advancing, we are advancing the underlying models that underpin the information that we can receive today and the campaigns that we can send tomorrow is only getting faster, better, cheaper. We saw with DeepSeek in the open source space, right? Underlying tech giants are going to be embedding DeepSeek into their playbook just because it's cheaper, just because it's faster, without any consideration of actually where the data's going. Only because they're seeing the flashing lights of low cost, higher quality, but actually it's all about the data. It all comes down to that foundational source of truth, which is the data. And so you have to be really discerning about where, who are you using? What is the foundational LLM provider? It doesn't have to be an LLM provider if you're generating images, if you're generating sound, video, whatever it is. Whatever model that you're using, who are they? Where are they based? What does the team look like? How big are they? Do you trust them? Because at the end of the day, these are the guys that are putting your inputs into their models and sending you their outputs. And from an ethical perspective, if all that's going to China, that's for everyone to sort of determine themselves, right? I won't comment on that further, but that's why it's so important from an ethical standpoint to understand who you are using, the types of data that you're sending to achieve what it is to ultimately achieve where it is that you want to go.
Mm-hmm. So in essence, then, I mean, this would be kind of a way that you would balance then hyper personalization with like maintaining your consumer trust.
Yes.
I want to also just chat to you a little bit about, the data privacy laws, seeing as how we're on this part of the topic right now. We've seen a shift, in data privacy laws, like the General Data Protection Regulation, and then of course the
Yes.
California Consumer Privacy Act. Now,
Yep.
do you actually think we'll reach a stage, where customers demand transparency on AI-driven recommendations? I mean, similar to how they demand transparency on data collection, for example.
Yeah, you know what? It's an absolutely brilliant point. I think consumers will seek transparency more and more as these models get more intelligent. Right now, if you ask it to do a math problem and it doesn't quite get it right, someone goes, "Oh, it's just a fad, it's just a game. These models aren't really that smart." But then when it's able to build a new technology at the click of a button, and you go, "Oh, okay, actually that was quite cool. It just built this whole new software suite for my organization. Oh, but it got that bit wrong. Still don't really care." And then when it gets even better and even more powerful, only then do people start paying attention and start asking more questions. And we're seeing people start to do that today, given the capabilities of DeepSeek, given the capabilities of OpenAI's O3, their O3 mini model as well, and what's actually possible here. Because data protection for both the consumer and the enterprise is vital, given the sensitivity, given the customers, given all the stakeholders for who you are dealing with. And the worst case scenario would be for all of that to be lost or to be handed over to a bad actor. So we want to avoid that, and we want to verify the trust, the accountability, and the predictability of these underlying providers, and how we can thoughtfully go ahead and verify that, number one, the answers that I'm getting are true and real and ratified, and then number two is actually, okay, how is this going to be continued moving forward into the future? So there will have to be some regulation that will come out of this, because who controls access to the smartest models in the world? That is a question that still is not yet answered. We still don't know that. It is simply a race to the top right now. And it is very much the case of East versus West. And it is full speed ahead, accelerate at all costs. The number of GPUs that are now being used to train the next generation of models is insane. It was 10,000 to generate Llama 3. It'll be 100,000 to generate Llama 4. And we aren't seeing that cap anytime soon. People will only stop when they start realizing the consequence. Well, they won't stop. It's very much a case to control the power, to control the narrative, because that's what matters at the end of the day inside of these large organizers, inside of these large enterprises. So we have to be really thoughtful, really careful about where we get our information from, and to make sure that the regulatory picture moving forward is safe for everyone.
Mm-hmm. So let's flip this around a little bit, right? Do you foresee a future where AI personalization becomes so good that customers actually willingly exchange more of their personal data in return for a completely frictionless, like, brand experience, for example?
Yeah. I think we are seeing Okay, so there is a really interesting movie called Her, where you have this guy, Joaquin Phoenix, the actor. He sort of falls in love with his AI, and the anthropomorphization of AI is both wondrous but also dangerous, and we have to be very thoughtful about the types of data that we're handing over, and that only gets harder when the AI knows more about you, where the AI can articulate what you like, your preferences, what you dislike. Because when it does that, it almost feels like a friend. Then it knows you inside out. No, actually, I'll go one step further. It knows you better than your friend.
But isn't that like what we're currently doing? When you are busy, having to get, even just like documentation, and you've got to sort things out, and you go in ChatGPT and you're like, okay, wherever you go. I mean, it doesn't have to be ChatGPT, but you're busy, and then sometimes you're like, yo, dude, like, what was that? What crap thing did you just give me? And you're actually already talking to it as if it's a person, so to speak. Yeah, it is. We're on very interesting ground, I would say. Interesting because it's fascinating, but it's scary at the same time. Yeah.
We absolutely are. We absolutely are. Yeah.
So Alex, I mean, you've seen firsthand how AI is automating everything, and we're talking about this extensively right now, right? Things from like ad copy and design to campaign optimization, even product development. So some will actually argue that AI will amplify human creativity, and there's obviously others that say it will eventually replace it. So do you believe that we're heading towards a future where marketing will be fully AI driven, or do you actually think that human creativity will remain irreplaceable? I know you touched on it earlier because you were talking about still having that human side to it, but do you think this could be a possibility that we could reach that?
Yeah, I absolutely do see it as a possibility, just because of how much leverage you can achieve through using these tools. Leverage on an information density, but also width. Think about how much information you can gather about your target segments, about the audience that you want to capture, but also how much depth you can go. Right now, if I were to ask ChatGPT to produce a campaign, it would be very mid. It would be very, very mid, and it would require human touch and insight and structuring and sentence characteristics and grammar and unique takes that these LLMs don't yet understand. That's it. Because at the end of the day, one thing that will never go away, Kia, is that humans are innate storytellers. Storytelling is at our heart. And LLMs are kind of understanding that, but also kind of not, right? I think one of the best ways that I can tell if someone wrote me an email using AI is it goes, it's not about X, it's about Y. It's not about making it better, it's about making it faster. And it's this sort of common narrative. It's this sort of common A but B or C but D, something which was omnipresent within its training data. And it is simply regurgitating that today, right? We are so early in this field of LLMs and AI. Maybe to sort of contrast that and to sort of articulate this one step further about where we're going. OpenAI released a model called Text Da Vinci, which cost about $60 per 1 million tokens. And a token is about 0.75 words. It's essentially a portion of a word. And these tokens are used during inference. Inference is essentially when I ask ChatGPT a question, it does a bit of thinking and then it spits out an answer. That bit in between is called inference. Today, it is 1,000 times cheaper in a 2-year period from 2020 to 2022 when GPT-4 was released. It is 1,000 times cheaper. To think about where this will be in 2, 5, 10, 20 years time is insane, right? The cost of intelligence will trend to near zero. It will eventually asymptote off, but it is going to go to near zero. And so where we think about that is, okay, now I can throw a ton more compute behind generating the content that I want to target to my customers. And I do think the quality will come on leaps and bounds. We're still very, very early. We're still not quite there yet. That's why I mentioned it's important to bring you plus the AI with your unique thoughts to generate something really targeted and really special that makes someone feel something. In the future, I think, will the AI be able to do most of that, if not all of that on its own? Sure. But right now we have to act on the information and the quality of the models that we have today. And I think it would be remiss of you as an individual to hand all of that over as a marketer on day zero, on today. Could that change it in the future? Absolutely.
So, Alex, how should agencies and brands actually be rethinking their creative teams right now to stay ahead of AI automation? I think that's a very important question. I'd love for you to expand on that.
Yeah, you know what? The amount you can achieve today with a lean, focused team is incredible, right? I'm not saying AI is going to replace you, but what I am saying is if you are thoughtfully using AI, you can reach significantly more scale than an entire marketing division who doesn't use it at all, right? Think about the number of emails you can send, the number of campaigns you can generate, the number of reports you can produce. It is absolutely unprecedented. And so when you're sort of thinking about this as a marketer to scale, it ultimately boils down to, number one, a willingness to include it within your strategy, but that willingness has to come from the top down, right? It's, do the fundamental decision makers inside of your organization believe in this new technology and believe in its capability to positively influence the direction of your organization? If that's the case, then you're already you're already ticking green. Then it comes down to actually, okay, what are the right tools that I need to use here? Because there are thousands of them. And so you need to find the one that suits you. One size doesn't fit all. A small team of 3 versus a big team of 300, they're going to be using probably different tools to achieve outcomes given their targeting, given their positioning. And so you just need to be thoughtful about that process and do your research. You really need to dig in. You need to ask lots of questions because, as I mentioned previously, find your own truth with these tools. DeepSeek could be right for you. It might not be, but you need to find the right tool to help deliver the outcomes that you want to achieve. And that's probably the most important lens.
We at DesignRush, we sit at the center of agency and brand partnerships. Agencies
Yes.
are constantly navigating client concerns around AI.
Yes.
So many brands are eager to leverage AI, but like others, they do hesitate, especially when it comes to tools like GPT or Gemini. How would you say agencies handle clients how would you say agencies should handle clients who are skeptical or like outright resistant to AI? And is there a way to position AI-driven strategies without pushing tools that might actually make them uncomfortable?
Yeah, it's a brilliant question. The thing that has to be underpinned here, Kia, is education. Everything starts with education. It starts with awareness. It starts with understanding. And the reason why you're probably getting this pushback is because of the information that your clients are digesting and already know. And you can't blame them because all they're consuming are the headlines, are the mainstream media who are pushing narratives to generate clicks. They are pushing fear. They are pushing uncertainty. They are pushing doubt because they have a very different incentive structure to the people who are using the right tools to generate the outcomes. So you need to lead with education, lead with upskilling your partners, your individuals, your people with actually, okay, what's the truth here? How are these models useful? What are the right ones to use? And what's the impact that we can make if we use them right, today? And if you lead with that, I think what you'll see is eyes open and minds start to shift when it comes to the potential of what could be.
You've worked with agencies and brands, at the forefront of AI adoption. So what would you say is actually the best AI human collaboration model that you've seen so far?
So fundamentally, if we're thinking about the right AI model itself, I think there's so much on the market. There's so much choice right now. If you were to rewind the tape to, 2-3 years ago to November 2022, there was really one model on the market, which was GPT 3.5. It was the eye-opening moment where humans could interface with AI in a format that was useful and that everyone knew. That was natural language, that was plain English, right? So this was totally eye-opening because it was a format that everyone was used to. We all text, we all WhatsApp, we all send emails. And that was the first glimmer. Today, you take a step back, there are loads. You've got Gemini from Google, you've got models coming out from Microsoft themselves, you've got OpenAI's suite of models, you've got Anthropic with all of their Claude models, and you've got so many open source, so many brilliant open source models. And now you've got, the East coming up as well with models like DeepSeek, with models like Quen. And so I think what's beautiful here is there are great models for different use cases, right? If you are wanting to develop a really detailed marketing strategy or a marketing plan that you can use going through into Q2 or Q3, pasting in large corpuses of information and text that is relevant that you are willing to share, and getting a model like O1 to reason through and think step by step would achieve a far greater output than if you were, say, just using Claude 3.5 Haiku, which is a smaller model that delivers quite concise answers. So it's really, but then if you're wanting just get a quick answer, right, you might go for the latter. So it's really important to understand which model's useful for which use case. And then maybe if we go one step further and think about the human model collaboration, there are already brilliant use cases that are emerging, and maybe some that are quite accessible for individuals at enterprises, at businesses, would be even thinking about, okay, how can I train a custom GPT or a Claude project on some internal marketing documents that we have to help upskill a new marketer to come on board? So instead of me having to sort of spend 3 hours going through meetings, they can just ask questions on my marketing documents and get answers on demand, right? They can do that at 11 p.m. midnight when they're at home.
Exactly.
When your colleague probably wouldn't be so willing to hop on a quick Slack huddle. So I think the scale and leverage that you can achieve and the different dynamics that you can see emerging are really quite compelling.
Definitely. So now, if AI can test and optimize creative content at scale, do you think future marketing teams will be primarily engineers and data scientists rather than traditional creatives?
Oh, this is such a good question. Such a good question. You know what? I think right now there is a necessity for both. You need great data scientists, you need great data engineers, and you need great storytellers. Because without both, one or the other leads to an outcome that sways. Either it's a really, really, potent answer that is really unpersonal, or you get something that's super personal, but maybe you only get to deliver once because you couldn't scale it without your engineer. And so you have to think thoughtfully about what you want to do today. But I think we're going to see the emergence of this moving forward in the future, given how the necessity to be technical will really no longer be a thing, because you can now build and implement and improve these strategies and improve these models today yourself without having to have a PhD in computer science. Maybe I could draw on one example here, Kia. So I previously founded a new startup called GrowHub, and my background is non-technical, but I leverage tools such as V0, such as Cursor, these new AI tools that marketers themselves or individuals within an enterprise can use to build a quick dashboard or a quick piece of software that was never otherwise possible if they didn't have a really deep understanding of functions, formulas, and programming logic. But yet today, they can use natural language, just like if they were generating a marketing campaign with Claude or ChatGPT or another LLM. They can ask, hey, generate a quick Kanban board for my marketing initiatives in Q2 and use these 2 pages of documents. And all of a sudden, you get a really nice front end and something usable that you can send to your exec that can go, hey, how about that? And all of a sudden it goes, hold on a second, right? Whoa, when was that ever possible before? It just wasn't. And I think there is so much brilliance and wonder to be explored there just using natural language, because it is the programming language of the world, right? It is the natural language interface that we all use. We're chatting today on a podcast, we are sending emails, all using language. So we may as well make that the interface to get the outputs and the answers that we want from AI today.
We're actually in an era where AI can generate like unlimited marketing content in seconds. I mean, we're talking a lot about that. Your blog posts, your product descriptions, ad copy, video commercials. I mean, it's crazy, right? Now, if every brand is actually leveraging AI for content creation, how do businesses actually differentiate themselves? I mean, do you think we're actually at risk of making marketing look and sound the same across industries?
Yeah, it's, content is becoming a commodity. Content itself is wholly commoditized. You can generate 100 LinkedIn posts a day on 100 accounts and push it and make it live. But will you receive the outcome that if you generated one really thoughtful one and you actually spent a little bit of time on it? And I think what we're going to see is with models where they are today, they are only so good at some things, whereas in the future, they're going to be very good at most things. And what that means for you as a marketer is, okay, me moving forward, me thinking about my strategy, there is going to be a lot of opportunity here waiting for individuals. And it's very much up to you as the commandeer of your team or you as the champion inside of your organization to push these initiatives forward so that you are on the right side of right and so that you are able to scale and leverage these initiatives in a way that is true to you, because we are going to see an absolute Cambrian explosion of content online. We're already seeing it today on LinkedIn, on X, on Reddit, through newsletters, through so many mediums of where we consume content, but they aren't all made equally. You take 2 different newsletters from across the web. One's probably going to be made very, very thoughtfully and it's going to be one issue. It's going to have, tens of hours spent on it. The other might have just been a copy and paste job from ChatGPT. And will both, sing the same tune? Will both resonate with the audience the same? No. So there's a couple of considerations that you need to have from here. It's, okay, what is the actual intent of the campaign or the strategy that I'm developing? Is it something that is a quick hit that probably could be largely handed over to AI today, and actually the outcome would be somewhat similar? Or is it something a little bit more thoughtful? Is it more of a deeper dive that requires more nuance and human intuition and understanding that would have to be infused? So I think there's definite opportunities on both sides here for you as a marketer to think about. And it's very much up to you to discern, okay, given this campaign or given the strategy that I need to hit this week, what would be the right approach here? If it's a more thoughtful industry report and I'm just using an AI to generate it all, probably isn't quite the right touch. But if it's actually pulling on organizational insights and infusing that and then attacking at it, then that's probably more like it. So you need to be responsible about how you're using these tools and making sure that you're adjusting it appropriately given the effect that you're wanting to achieve.
Taking a look at what is currently happening, and we're relying on all these different models to assist us, with your brand campaigns, your, just any type of like idea format, or maybe it's even processes or anything like that, that needs to be addressed, etc., etc. A lot of the information that we're finding on these models is largely based, right, on previous information, like from years back. So where's our new thought? So I think, I mean, in terms of differentiating, marketing in essence, as we were talking to that now, is that having that human approach then combined with, whatever's being, given in terms of the information that's being handed over from the model, then that would then obviously create that uniqueness. But now, when do we start providing new thought?
We're already seeing so much synthetic data being put into these models and being used to train these models to get a certain answer. And, there are, I guess, two sides to this. On the one hand, we needed true original human text and human writing to train to ultimately train the V1s. But now, given that we wanted to do the sort of V8s, V9s, and V10s, the availability of information just isn't there. We've almost taken the entire text of the internet, compressed it, turned it into a model, and now we're sort of rubbing our hands and going, what's next? So we need to really be thinking about where we can get this new data from. And that's why, privacy is such an issue, because we've seen, some video models, which I won't name names, but take videos and take images from certain sites and train their models on that, and actually, be massively infringing on copyright. So that ultimately necessitates using synthetic data to train these next generation of models. But what does that mean about quality? So if you're training an AI on AI generated outputs, assuming the transformer architecture stays constant, stays consistent, are we going to see some erosion of the output for what it can achieve? And that's why reinforcement learning, especially human feedback that we're providing to these models, is so important today, because this is a big part of how GPT-4 was so successful and why it was such a big step change from the likes of GPT 3.5, because they just had thousands of humans marking which answer was better, A or B, left or right. And actually, not only that was on the latter stage, on the sort of on some of the fine-tuning stage before the RLHF, before the reinforcement learning stage, it was actually humans typing model answers to go, hey, this is actually a model answer of what I deem as good. And the only way to get that at scale in the initial is to get it all by humans. And so I guess we're sort of still figuring that out today in terms of where that's going to lie in the years to come, because we were able to achieve such a significant leap with the likes of GPT-4, given that a lot of human input was used to get such a high potent model. But if we're thinking about the GPT-5s and the GPT-6s, if all we're doing is feeding in synthetic data, then we've got to be really thoughtful about the types of answers that we're going to get.
So true. Now, do brands, in your view, need to actually create more AI native campaigns then to remain relevant, or does heavy reliance on AI generated content actually risk losing that authenticity? I mean, I know you've been touching on some of it, but like just to sort of really zone into this question.
Yeah, so reliance on AI is a massive danger in 2025. I think you have to use it correctly, as we've mentioned, for the right campaign, for the right output.
Yes.
You can't just click a button and go. That will never work, because that will create a lot of mistrust, because all you're doing is scaring your customers away and going, hold on a second, that email was written a little bit differently last week. Why is it now feeling a little bit rough around the edges and a little bit, it's a bit like sticking a square into a circular hole almost. It isn't quite feeling right. And what does that mean? They might unsubscribe, they might skip it, they might not pay too much attention moving forward into the future. And so where the opportunity lies is not a reliance on AI, but a reliance on genuine human thought and human touch that must be maintained moving forward into this era of AI. Because the most important thing is maintaining your independence of thought and ability to ask good questions, so that actually, number one, the output that you can get from AI is far better than your competitor. But also number two is actually the unique insights that you've gathered throughout the years, as we've seen, for example, with, say, other marketing companies where they're pulling on examples of human generated text, human generated campaigns, and using that still has to be maintained. AI today affords scale, it affords leverage, but the voice still has to be there. Marketing at the end of the day is a human to human interaction, and that can never be lost, because it's that then could just lead to a lot of mistrust. That could lead to a lot of detrimental brand outcomes. And so it's really up to you to keep your voice without over relying on AI, but using it with AI to get far better, far more accurate and far faster answers than if you were to just go about it alone.
So Alex, which brands are currently leading the way in AI-driven customer experience, and what can others learn from them?
Yeah, I guess two come to mind. One that I mentioned previously, and actually a new one. So we've previously touched on Mailchimp, what they're doing, being able to pull on large corpuses of data and information from previous campaigns and using those insights to infuse uniqueness and authenticity into new campaigns, just because it's far quicker and far cheaper than getting a human to review 500 previous emails. But on the flip side, what we're seeing is actually, okay, how are we doing automation plus plus? What I mean by that is, if we say, look at the likes of Salesforce, which is a massive company, what we've seen is their CEO come out and go, look, we're actually going to see a massive shift in actually our organization for where we're going to be in terms of the human capacity, but also the AI capacity. What I mean by that is they are now building agents and tools, internal tools, that are able to capitalize on the trends we're seeing in generative AI today. So maybe we can double click into that a little bit further. So what Salesforce are doing is they are building internal agents to scale both their content, both their organizational efficiency, to heights which no other organization is really thinking about today. So they are heavily investing in the engineering. They're heavily investing in the sort of in the engineer types to try and get an angle, to try and get an edge when it comes to being able to achieve outputs of both a quantity and quality far greater than their competitors. But will that mean a loss of touch, a loss of authenticity, a loss of uniqueness? We don't know. So I guess it's sort of two different parallels that maybe were useful to draw on to go, okay, on the one hand, we're drawing on unique human experience and human-driven content. On the other, we're actually, really doubling down on the use of agents to drive change, to drive insights, to drive, output ultimately from these organizations. But, which one might win? I think both have a brilliant chance in being tremendously successful. The underlying truth here, Kia, is just being present to the tools that you're using as a marketer to go, does this align with my organization, the ethical values that we have today, and where we want to go tomorrow? Because if it doesn't, then you're just, I guess, going against the grain. And no one wants to do that. The key is to present your ideas thoughtfully and do that in a way, prioritizing education, like we were talking about previously, but doing it in a way that fits for you, your team, and your organization.
So Alex, what are the major ways that you're using generative AI in your business specifically?
Yeah, there are a whole host of ways we are using it throughout the stack, going from ideation through to the actual output that we are generating today. So maybe if we think about, going from the idea phase, okay, so going from, okay, we have a customer or we have a bit of content that we want to produce today at the Signal. Ultimately, our core piece is a newsletter every single week, but we run a whole host of partnerships in the B2B lens through LinkedIn, through X, through the newsletter as well. So we have to be really thoughtful about how we approach these. Now, when it comes to generating ideas, generating insights, we're using a whole host of tools, whether that be Claude projects trained on our unique company documents for generating ideas, given past campaigns, past insights that we've received. So Claude projects have been absolutely fantastic for that. But then actually asking the information, giving the information, what are we using for that? So I'm going to name drop a couple of tools here, Kia. You can either leave them in or or cut them out as you wish. I'm not affiliated with any of these, but I'll say them for the sake of it, because I do think they are generally useful, and I think enterprises, I think professionals could benefit tremendously from them. So number one is a tool called Whisperflow, which essentially just lets you use your voice instead of your keyboard to write text. So all I'm doing is, with my microphone right here, I'm speaking sentences and it reels it off, whether that be me answering an email, me answering a WhatsApp, me answering a Slack message, or me answering a comment on LinkedIn to an audience member that commented on a previous campaign that we did. So instead of me taking a while to type out X amount of words, I am simply speaking it, and it learns through names, it learns through my tone of voice, it learns through my sentence structure, so that at the end of the day, I'm not really editing much, and I'm just using a couple of shortcuts on my keyboard, and off we go to the races. So even from right the way back through to me giving the AI ideas, me speaking, me interacting, there are already tools that you can think about using. So Whisperflow was one of them there. Obviously, we're using Claude projects as well to generate ideas and really think thoroughly about how we're wanting to approach a campaign. Another tool that I think is great, I think they also use some AI, so is a tool called Screen Studio, and you might see you might see some rather thoughtfully composed videos online where you go, oh man, how do they edit that cut, or how did they follow a zoom function from the mouse when you're sort of showing a product demo. And they're using brilliant things like AI captions to generate a very professional looking video that takes me a couple of minutes, that auto generates all the zooms, all the captions. It does all that transcription for me in a matter of minutes, instead of me having to go out and hire a professional video editor that would cost me, thousands of dollars. I can do this myself for $100 a year, which I think is brilliant given the amount of content, the amount of videos that I'm producing today. So that would probably be another. And then if we're sort of thinking through the workflow, so maybe not just the content creation itself, but actually the back and forth with the clients, right? So obviously you've got tools like Copilot, like Gemini that have come out that are very, very useful. But there are also some tools at the edge. One tool that I really like to use was a tool called Fixer, which essentially just writes emails in your voice. It builds an understanding of your inbox, and ultimately helps you answer emails, helps you write emails in a way that is true to you, true to your voice. And so maybe something to highlight with this, Kia, is you have to be really thoughtful about the information that you're sharing with these tools, and you have to really verify and validate the companies that you're using it. Am I willing to share my speech, this email response, this marketing campaign with these tools? And it's up to you as an individual to find the right tools that work for you. And actually the final one that I have built as a function of the writing, the learnings, the secrets that I've done online when it comes to writing content that resonates with an audience, writing content that can garner impressions and build an audience. Well, ultimately it actually turned out to be a tool that I built myself. So it actually was GrowHub at the end of the day. So this was a tool that I built from the insights that I gained over the last really 2 years of creating content that resonates with enterprise, content that resonates in that B2B lens, where it has to be something that is suited for the platform. You see a lot of very generalist marketing copy generators popping up online, but what you don't see are too many tools that are unique and specified for a given platform, that can pull on unique knowledge that someone or a body of people has gained over a period of time, and then can layer that on top of an AI model. In this case, it's thousands of high quality viral posts that we were then able to train our models on to help anyone package a blog post, an idea, a piece of text, a YouTube video, a URL, paste that in, and get something that ultimately can resonate with an audience. In this case, it's LinkedIn. And so I think we're going to see so many more tools like this at the edge, where it's unique insights fused with foundational AI technology, in this case, an LLM, and build package something in a way that is unique and that actually these bigger players just aren't building, because that isn't their focus. Their focus is building generalist tools, whereas people on the edge absolutely are building specialized tools. And when have you ever seen a generalist tool outperform a specialist one? Very, very rarely. And so it's really important that you're choosing the right tools for the right job there.
So, I mean, in terms of GrowHub itself, do you have maybe some businesses you could name that's actually benefited from your tool itself?
We have seen already a couple of resounding testimonials, even though we launched earlier this month, so we've only been live for literally a few weeks, but already the customers that we've been able to attract and the agencies and the marketeers within organizations, within enterprise, has been fantastic because of the level of tailoring we can do to what makes a LinkedIn post resonate. Because at the end of the day, me writing a blog versus me writing an email versus me writing a LinkedIn post are three very, very separate, distinct mediums. And each of them relies on unique insights, specifically on LinkedIn, where anyone can ask ChatGPT to generate a post for a marketeer for a new campaign that they want to launch next week and go. But what they can't do is pull on the thousands of high-performing previous examples that did resonate, that did work, and use that as the training data to package their ideas, their thoughts in a way that will resonate. And I think the scale you can achieve when you do that from different mediums. So if you as a marketer had a video campaign that you produced for a client, and actually now you want to turn that into a different form of content, you could turn that into an email using maybe Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini or another LLM, or you could turn it then now into a LinkedIn post with GrowHub, because all of a sudden it understands that voice and it can transfer that into a tone that actually resonates in an online forum. I think is absolutely brilliant. And that was really the fundamental impetus behind that, behind me wanting to do that, was essentially give thousands of people a platform to showcase their product or service in a way that I know resonates in LinkedIn. And if I can give that to someone in a really affordable, accessible way, then I can sleep well at night.
So I just want you to give me a little bit of a brief overview here, because if I'm, for example, an organization and I want to use GrowHub, where would I start with everything? How would I go through the process, and how exactly is this going to benefit my brand at the end of the day?
Yeah, it's such a great question. I think you have to just get stuck in. And I think how we've designed the tool is to be as simple and as frictionless as possible, right? You can write a single sentence and we will generate a fully fledged LinkedIn post for you. I would recommend adding more context, given, as we were talking about earlier in our conversation, the more unique human insights and stories and notes you can share with AI, typically the better the output would be. So even if that's a 3-hour-long YouTube video, for example, I've done 3-hour-long Lex Friedman podcast episodes, or just really, really long conversations, and being able to pull something unique from that in a way that resonates, I think is terrific. So you just have to get stuck in. And the way we do that is really through a whole range of mediums. We cater through plain English natural language text. You can paste in corpuses of text, of documents, blogs. So if you as an organization have a blog and this is your sort of source of truth when it comes to generating SEO, generating leads, but also informing your clients and potential clients of your services, if now I want to reach different channels, I can turn that, if it's through text, through LinkedIn, you can simply drop that URL in and it will use all of those insights that you typed away, you spent your honest hours typing, and generate something that is packaged for LinkedIn. We're starting today with 3 unique styles. Tomorrow that'll be actually able to tune to your brand voice, which is something that is part of our roadmap over the coming month, which I'm very, very excited about. And I think we're just going to see this personalization happen more and more and more. And this will very much lead through to the research tools that we're developing. So whether that be a marketer in the B2B space and you're wanting to target groceries in the north of England, then all of a sudden the research that you can do all within one tool will be able to cater for that. And that's very much where we're wanting to go there, in that it is this single source of truth for you to generate content, for you to generate meaningful content that resonates with a specific audience, be it LinkedIn, and do it in a way that just frees you up, right? It saves you the embarrassment of posting a ChatGPT post littered with emojis and cringe takes, but also it's right, but also it actually empowers you with the insights to go, hey, I'm pulling on these pieces of text that me and my team honestly spent hours creating, and if I can just repurpose that at the click of a button, then we're all good.
I'm so excited for you. This is wonderful. Oh my gosh. I'm definitely going to keep an eye on GrowHub and just see you grow from hub to hub.
That's it.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so Alex, we were talking about DeepSeek earlier very briefly. And we were talking about, the disruption within the AI landscape by, different models, developing models, rivaling US counterparts, fraction of the cost and energy consumption. I mean, this development, it's not only challenged, your established tech giants, it's also raised concerns regarding data privacy and security. And I mean, we've spoken a bit about that. We've spoken a bit about the disruption as well. So what I want to find out from you is, what measures should businesses actually consider to balance the benefits of adopting cost-effective AI solutions with the imperative of maintaining data security and also ethical standards? I know you can speak quite strongly to the ethics as well, the AI ethics. So if you could expand on that, that would be great.
Yeah. I guess we can break that down into two parts. So data security and ethics, because the benefits are tremendous, but at the same time, we have to be thoughtful about using these tools, using these models to achieve the outputs that we want to. So let's start with data security. So we've touched on the idea of being sensitive, being thoughtful about the sensitive data that you're sharing to these models, making sure that you're using the enterprise plans, you're using the enterprise grade versions of these models. The best example would be ChatGPT. If you're using the consumer version, it's training on your data. If you're using the enterprise version, it's not. That's in their terms of service, in their terms of use. So it's just something really important to pay attention to, because data security at the end of the day is imperative. You as a business leader, as a business owner, handle a lot of sensitive data, a lot of PII data, and it's up to you to share the right information with these models, with your models of choice, and keeping that forefront of your policy, whether that be ISO certified, SOC 2 certified, is so important. So data security has to be paramount. And then on the ethical side of things, it's the case where, I guess a couple of fronts. The first is my AI strategy just an AI strategy, as in, is my AI strategy not having much human part of it at all? Am I handing it over to AI? Because if I am, is the hallucination, is the biases, is all of this going to start coming through in the content that I'm generating today? Or if I'm finding more of a balance between the human and the AI, will that mean a better outcome? Most likely, if I'm being really honest, from the content that I consume, from the content that I digest, from the campaigns that I'm seeing online, the best ones leverage AI, bring in that human touch, and receive far better outcomes. So that's something to really keep top of mind. And then the other thing from an ethical standpoint is, I guess it blends both data security and ethics, which is, given the data that I'm sharing, am I comfortable from an ethical standpoint where that data is going and who's actually processing my data? Because if you're not happy, if you're using a service provider that is uncommon, that is maybe out on the edge, maybe that you don't know too much about, you need to approach it with a significantly more of a discerning eye than maybe a larger incumbent that has been verified by thousands of organizations prior. So it's up to you as the owner, as the user, to do that research yourself and make sure that you are very much sitting on the right side of right.
So this begs the question, how will companies, especially Western businesses, need to adapt their AI strategies if startups like DeepSeek continue to produce those high-performing models at a fraction of the cost? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think what's now possible is a really brilliant initiative, because let's take the open source market, Kia. So you as a business owner can access open source models which you can run locally on your organization servers, on your computers, at quite honestly a fraction of a cost than what you are paying for these large providers. And maybe let's double click into that. So we recently saw NVIDIA release something called Project Digits, which is essentially a supercomputer that can fit on your desk, right? It is absolutely insane what is now possible. And what these can do is not only train, but also run the inference of these large language models to prevent you from having to send data up to the cloud and up to different different parts of the world, so that everything stays on-prem, on-site, and that's secure. So it's very much up to you and your organization to determine, do I want something run locally, something open source, something that is centralized to my organization, or do I want to, am I happy to open that up to a little bit more of a broader scope and start using these models, using these foundational models, like we've discussed previously, and am I happy to use the enterprise grade platforms and versions to use my data? Not use my data, but to
I know what you mean, yeah.
but for me to use my data, whether that be some reports, whether that be some strategy documents, and for it to inference that in a way that is done on different servers around the world. But it's up to you if that sits right with you, right? One size does not fit all in this case. And it's very much dependent on the types of data that you're sending and also the types of organization that you are. So I would very much recommend researching that with a really thoughtful eye to make sure that you're using the right tool for the job.
I'm hearing you. Alex, our audience actually consists of decision makers, business leaders, brand executives who are constantly evaluating agency partnerships. Now, AI is fundamentally reshaping marketing, customer experience, and business operations. So it's making it harder to tell, like which agencies truly understand AI and then which are actually just riding the hype. So if you were a business leader today, what key signals would you look for when choosing the right agency partner in the AI era?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. What you need to do is, honestly, right now, you need to get on the phone with the people that you're working with and have a conversation with them, speak to them about, okay, tell me about your AI strategy. What are you using? What are the tools? How are you processing my data? Because me as a customer, me as a user, I want to know this. I want to have visibility on this. And if they are hesitant to provide that, or if they aren't compliant in wanting to share how that is being processed and the types of strategies and tools that they're using, then maybe they aren't the right agency for you. So the more transparent they are, I think the better, especially given the amount of hesitation and negativity surrounding the media today. So it's really important that you build that trust with the provider that you are working with the agency that you're providing with. And that all starts with a very human to human conversation. You really can't beat it today, whether that be through a leader, whether that be through the decision maker that you're working with. You need to understand, is this individual or is this organization qualified enough to handle my data and for it to lead, for it to charge forward on a strategy that is leveraging the most recent advancements of generative AI in a thoughtful way. Because everyone's talking about it, but not everyone's using it in a really meaningful, true way. So many are in it for a quick win, are in it for a cheap buck. But actually, the real winners that are going to prevail here are the ones that are doing so in a meaningful way, that are transparent with their customers, that are transparent with their users, and are very, very happy to talk openly about that.
Do you think we'll see the rise of AI-first marketing consultancies replacing traditional agencies?
Yes, I think we will see. So here's the thing. An AI-first marketing consultancy, I believe right now, is leveraging the buzzword that is AI whilst staying on the cutting edge of the tools that they can actually infuse into their strategy. I think a sort of AI-driven marketing consultancy will just turn into a marketing consultancy of the future, as we've seen with so many company name suffixed with AI now is just company name because this sort of AI will become ordinary. It's like the .com. It's like Amazon.com is now just called Amazon, right? At the end of the day, every AI company will just be a company, but they're using this new technology in a way that empowers them, enables them to reach scale and leverage that was never otherwise possible. So in the short term, absolutely, because if they're getting an edge on the right tools, on the right processes that are using the tools to outperform someone who just isn't paying any attention to AI today, I think there is going to be outperformance. There is going to be dominance, because you would be silly not to pay attention, right? We've touched on this many times before here, but I think it was Archimedes once said, if you give me a lever long enough and a place to stand, I will move the world. And the same is true for AI. If you give me the right tool for the job, I will be able to create campaigns, to create strategies far better, far quicker than someone who just isn't using these tools whatsoever.
Yeah. Oh, totally hearing you. What would you say is actually the single biggest AI capability that will separate the top agencies from the rest in the next 5 years?
Do you know what? I think there won't be a single capability. I think there will be use cases of these models in very, very unique cases that the best agencies will use and apply. What I mean by that is, if I am writing emails for following up with clients, I can go into a database or a CRM and pull a unique insight into an email of, hey, it was, I hope you enjoyed the football last week, because you know that they're a Manchester United supporter. And being able to understand that and pull a unique insight, leveraging AI, leveraging workflows in a way that actually, if I were to just send a quick email by myself, I may not have included that human touch insight. So being able to use these unique cases, that be it for email generation, another be it for idea generation, another one for building customer rapport, there are so many use cases which I think a sort of blanket AI solution won't fit the mix. And I think we're seeing this with, this is the reason why, let's say, ChatGPT was so prolific, was because it wasn't just because of ChatGPT, but it was the underlying technology that underpinned ChatGPT that gave rise to the application layer that so many builders can now use and apply to unique situations. Just like I did say with LinkedIn, where it's applying unique insights with these models in a ways that the large incumbents just aren't paying attention to. So this is really the game. This is where the opportunity lies. It's going, okay, given that I do have this campaign that I need to generate some content for, what tools will be right for the job and what should I avoid doing? How can I ask the right questions instead of going, oh, there's this company that does everything for me, it's a one-stop shop. There'll be a lot of those over the next 3-5 years, just because of the hype and the driven nature of where we are today within generative AI. So it's important you are discerning. It's important you do ask questions. Asking questions is the best thing you can do today to really understand how this is appropriate, given where I want to go today as a marketeer, as an organization.
Wow. Alex, this has been incredible. I mean, I have just thoroughly enjoyed this. Thank you so much for showing us where AI is taking the marketing and the customer experience. Just also thank you so much for your incredible insight. I mean, this has really been, I thoroughly enjoyed this.
It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Curious about what top brands look for when choosing an agency? Tune into our latest episodes where we reveal the decision-making secrets of leading brands. Subscribe to the DesignRush Podcast and stay ahead of the competition.